Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Pantry to Plate. I'm Kristen, the food bank dietitian, and I am here in the Kaiser Permanente Learning Kitchen at the Atlanta Community Food Bank. And today we are celebrating Arab American Heritage Month. But I have a guest who has been working really hard on a recipe to share with you guys. So I'm first going to invite Diana. She is my dietetic intern. Come on.
Hello, everybody.
Yes, so Diana is from Emory University, and she is training to become a dietitian. She's got a little experience working on videos like social media and stuff like that, but this one's a little bit different. So we've been practicing our cooking demo skills, and the dish we're going to prepare for you today is the only thing that oops, okay, continue. The only thing that we modified in this dish was to make it a little bit shorter so it fits really well into like your busy weeknights, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about what we're going to make today?
Yeah, so today we're going to make caramelized onion, lentils, and rice. It's inspired by an Arab dish called Mujadara. You can also pronounce it a different way.
I call it Mujadara, and that's just how it looks. That's how it's spelled. I think your pronunciation may be a little bit more on par.
But however you pronounce it, it's a wonderful dish as all the ingredients in the dish are shelf stable, so very easy to prepare. And it's very flavorful, and the key component of this dish is going to be caramelizing onions, which Kristen was talking about, tend to take a little bit longer. Yeah. It takes about 40 minutes for them to caramelize normally in a pan. But as she said, I've been working really hard to try to speed that process up. So I'm going to show you guys a different method to caramelizing the onions so you get that same deep color, that same flavor, but it's not taking you 40 minutes.
So, and it's not completely hands-on the whole time.
Exactly. Yeah. Very, very easy to make.
Okay, well, let's get into it. So we're going to make the caramelized onion, lentils, and rice. And Diana's going to show us how to make it.
Awesome. So first, I just kind of want to show you guys what we have here on this tray. So we have some chopped onions right here, some white rice. We have some spices. We have salt, pepper, some cumin, some garlic powder, as well as some chili powder. One thing I like to kind of mention is these are the seasonings I chose to use. This is a base recipe, so you could add totally different seasonings, whatever your heart desires. If you like it a little more spicy, a little more savory, so choose what you would like. I also have some different cups of water here. That's going to be how we caramelize our onions. I'll show you that in a little bit. And then we have some oil for some sauteing. And then over here, I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but we have some lentils. And we're using green lentils versus red lentils or orange lentils. And the big reason for that is sometimes the red and orange lentils can get a little bit mushy in this dish. These are also very accessible here to our neighbors at the Atlanta Community Food Bank. So just a great resource. They can use these lentils in this dish if they choose to prepare it.
Yeah, we were really inspired by some of our neighbors asking us about lentils.
Yeah.
So this was a really great fit for celebrating and recognizing Arab American Heritage Month, and also providing a recipe that fits some of the pantry staples that we have on hand. Yeah. So what's our first step here?
Our first step is we have a pan over here that is nice and hot. And what we're going to do is just turn up the heat just a little bit. And this is a pan that is not nonstick. So sometimes we have nonstick pans, sometimes we don't. But what we're going to do is make this pan nonstick using a little bit of water. So I'm going to turn this heat up a little bit. I'm going to grab this water over here. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball. This is probably about a tablespoon of water. Once this pan gets really hot, we're going to add the water to the pan. And what that's going to do is create kind of a seal around the pan so it becomes nonstick. So we'll get this nice and hot. And you want to hear a little bit of a sizzle when you put the water on the pan. So we're going to test it out. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and add everything in there. And you can see kind of it bubbling. You want to move it all around. You can see that. And what we want to make sure is that all of the water evaporates. If we have water left, it's not going to create that seal and it's not going to be as nonstick. So you'll see some bubbles for a little bit, but once it evaporates, that's when you know the pan is ready. Right, Kristen?
That is correct. And so you don't have to do this step if you have a nonstick pan. So if you don't have a nonstick pan, this is a great way to make your pan work better for you. And so we wanted to make sure you had this little extra tip here. And then it really, the water evaporates off pretty quickly. So it just takes a couple of extra seconds to your cooking process.
Yeah, doesn't take too long. We have a little bit more of bubbles here. Doesn't take too long. Once this is completely evaporated, what we're going to do is take our onions and we're going to put them on the pan. Normally, we would add oil to saute them, right, Kristen?
Yes. You would use the oil first and you would cook it on like a medium-ish temperature for about 40 minutes for this caramelizing. And what you're doing is cooking them slowly and then building up the brown color, and like caramelizing equals sweet equals flavor. And that is the whole point of this dish. The onions are where you're going to get most of your flavor from. So doing it the way Diana's going to show us is going to make it a little more hands off, and it takes about 10 minutes versus about 40 minutes. I think that's a pretty big time saver.
Big jump there. Big jump.
Yeah.
So now our pan is completely hot and we have the water evaporated. We're going to go ahead and add our onions. You're going to hear that sizzle. Hope you guys can hear that at home. We're going to add the onions to the pan. And then the trick here is we're going to add water to the pan as well. And what this is going to do is cause the onions to steam and let it have all of those juices come out of the onions. And you can eyeball this. This is about 1/8 of a cup. You just want to add a little bit of water. We're going to stir this around just a bit. Make sure all of the onions are flat on the pan as much as you can. And then we're going to cover it. We're going to let it do its magic.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. You leave it alone. You don't need, do you need to stir it in this time frame?
You can. I think it's a little bit important to do that every so often because you don't want it to burn too much. Through my recipe testing, I found that if it chars a little bit, that's where you get that flavor.
Yeah.
So if you kind of walk away and leave the onions alone and come back and see that they're burned a little bit, don't freak out.
Just stir it and keep it moving.
Exactly. A little burnt crust never hurt anybody.
No, especially in this dish.
Exactly. And so I like to keep my heat pretty high throughout this process. The higher it is, the better, because it's going to cook a little bit faster and you're going to get a little bit of that char.
Yeah. So when you're if you prepare this dish at home, this is not the first step you're going to start with. We wanted to highlight the main key feature of this dish that really creates the flavor and just makes it amazing. So Diana's going to share the other steps that you're going to do before starting to cook your onions while the onions are cooking.
Yeah,
I'll just pass this over to you.
Thank you. So before you start your onions, what you're going to want to do is soak your rice. So with rice, it takes a decent amount of time to cook, but soaking it for at least 15 to 20 minutes, so this rice has already been soaked, is going to lower the cooking time. And so we're already trying to lower the cooking time with the method of the way we're cooking the onions. This is going to speed up the cooking time as well. Specifically with this dish, we want our lentils and our our lentils and our rice to cook at the same time. We don't want one to cook before the other, or one to maybe be halfway done and the other to be all the way done. So this just allows them to both be cooked at the same time. So first, you're going to want to just put some water on the rice, let it soak, let that be your first step. While that's soaking, what we want to do is cook our lentils halfway. So we call this parboiling, right, Kristen?
Parboiling, partially cooked.
Exactly. So you want to measure with your heart's content as far as adding the water to a pot. Put your lentils in there. You're going to bring it to a boil first. Once you see it boiling, you're going to bring it down to about medium heat and simmer for about 12 to 15 minutes, depending on what kind of cooktop you're using. And then once these are halfway cooked, that means they're ready to go. I kind of like to use what are you hearing when the lentils are done to know if they're done. You'll hear kind of a little bit of a crack or a, how do you want to call this? What sound?
It's like the lentils are still a little bit hard and they're rubbing against each other. And then also
crunchy.
like, yeah, kind of crunchy. And it also like rubs against the strainer. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, but we can hear it here. And that just tells you that it's not cooked all the way through, and that's what you're looking for. So no need to cook this. Like if you wanted to test it and taste it right now, they would still be a little crunchy, and that's what you want.
Exactly. So you probably can't hear this, but we're hearing that little crunchy sound. That means that your lentils are exactly the way they should be cooked. Because as we finish the recipe, I'll show you guys, they'll cook the other way through at the end of the recipe while everything is cooking and marinating together.
Yeah. So how much lentils are you using for the whole dish?
Yes. So we have 1 cup in total raw, so dry lentils. That's going to give you about 2 cups cooked. Right now, for the purposes of this cooking demo, we're using about half of this for our cooking time. But you can use the full cup is going to be in the recipe.
And then first, let's check our onions. I see them steaming over here. They're ready for their first stir.
I'm sure you guys can see that little bit of burnt at the bottom. We want that.
Yeah, you can see that.
Nice flavor. What's going to happen is we're going to add liquid to this pan. And when we add the liquid, it's going to basically pick up all that yummy goodness at the bottom of the pan and bring a lot of flavor to the dish. So again, don't be afraid of a little bit of burnt onions.
Yeah. So the stuck on bits at the bottom of the pan, that's called fond, F-O-N-D. And then when you add the liquid, what's that called? You know what that's called?
I don't remember what that's called.
It's called deglazing.
Yes, deglazing.
Deglazing. So a lot of dishes will like use some cooking wine or use some broth or something like that after you brown something in a pan. So all that does is help you get all of the flavor off the bottom of the pan. Exactly. And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Exactly. We're going to let these cook for just a minute more, just to kind of get a little bit more brown. And then what we're going to do is add our oil and our seasonings. But one thing I want to point out, I think Kristen had mentioned this to me, is we're using white rice. And white rice may not have as much nutritional properties to it as, say, brown rice, but adding the lentils to the white rice is going to add some fiber as well as some protein to this rice, which is fantastic.
Exactly. We want you to eat the rice that fits your cultural foodways, and we're not asking you to substitute something that doesn't taste good to you and doesn't just work for your family. So thinking about how to add nutrition versus taking away like really large components of your meals is a better way to just support your health overall. It's not nutrition unless you eat it. So if you're going to eat white rice and add some lentils or some beans, different ways to add nutrition.
Exactly. And if you wanted to use brown rice for this dish, you could, but it will take a little bit longer to cook. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're making your way through the recipe.
Yeah. And then if you were going to use brown rice, I want to say, we didn't test this out, but brown rice takes upwards to 40 minutes to cook. So don't par cook your lentils. So I would think you would add the lentils and your rice at the same time to the pot. Definitely still soak your brown rice if you're going to use that. But then just add your lentils in raw with the soaked rice. And that should cook everything together at the same time.
Yeah. And one thing I didn't mention, these onions are about ready to get their oil and their seasonings, is that onions have a lot of great health benefits.
Yeah.
So they're filled with a lot of antioxidants, a good amount of fiber. They're also a vegetable. We don't really think about that sometimes, which is really important to kind of pay attention to. They also are a prebiotic, meaning they feed our gut with really good bacteria, which is really great. Helps with good digestion. And they taste great. And that's what's awesome.
They taste great. They're not just a seasoning. They're not just the base of almost any recipe that you think of. They're also a vegetable. And like, if you like them, add more. You're just gonna add more vegetable and more flavor. And when you cook them like this, it smells so good. It smells so good, and it just really makes the flavor of this dish.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, now that these onions are about brown and caramelized, we're gonna go ahead and add our oil. So this is about 2 tablespoons of oil here. Add this in. And be careful, it may splatter a little bit.
Check your temperature over there. Yeah.
Lower that just a tad. We don't need any burnt faces and arms over here.
No.
Now we have our seasonings. Again, this is going to be salt, pepper, cumin, garlic powder, as well as some chili powder. But again, you can use whatever seasonings you like. Kristen, what seasonings would you want to add to this?
Oh, so from an Arab foodways, the cumin in this dish is like one of the traditional seasonings. There are other seasonings that you can add to make it more traditional. So things like cardamom, maybe a little pinch of cinnamon would add more of that Arabic flavor.
Yeah.
So like, it's interesting to think that like we before we were introduced to the spice trade, you know, like we were only eating food with like salt. And so like, thank you to all of the other cultures around the world who gave us spices.
Yeah. Thank you for making our dishes taste amazing.
Whether you choose to use them or not, but still. Yeah, you could add any flavors that also fit your preferences to make it your own. So like Diana said, this is a really nice basic recipe, which was actually created by a food blogger who's from I think she's from Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So like this is like a familial recipe for her, and she just used cumin, and then there were other ones who used so many other spices. So you've got a lot of wiggle room here.
Yeah, and I love, you said that she was, sharing it from her family and from her roots, and food is connection, it's love, it's bringing us together, and I think it's just so important that we're able to share that. So I'm very excited to do that today.
Absolutely.
This is smelling fantastic. We put all of our seasonings in the pan.
Let's show them. Let's show them what it looks like.
You guys see that? Beautiful.
So it's really nice and brown, and then so Diana added the seasonings right after adding the oil. I always do that. I love that. And what is that doing?
It's really going to brown up the onions nice and well and give them that, what's the word I'm looking for here? I'm not sure what I'm looking for, but what it's going to do is make it taste really, really good.
And it like infuses the oil, and it's like toasting the spices
Yes, that's the word.
Before you add your liquid, and that cultures around the world will toast it before they add it. So like add it first and then add your liquid. And it doesn't take long.
And it adds a lot more flavor to your dish.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
So now what we're gonna do is, this is a one-pot dish, right? We're not using anything else as of now. So we're gonna add in our lentils and our rice. So we'll add in our rice first. And again, this rice has not been cooked. It has just been soaked for about 15 to 20 minutes. You guys can hear that sizzle over there, hopefully. I know Kristen can.
I definitely hear it. I think you guys can hear it.
So we added the rice. Now we're going to add our lentils. Again, these are parboiled, so halfway cooked. And green lentils is what's going in. Just like that. Now we're going to stir it around just a little bit. Kind of get all of those ingredients nice and married. And I just love the color of this. You have the white from the rice, the brown from the onions. Yeah, toasting it all up. So now that we have all of these ingredients in the pan, what we're going to do is add about a cup of water. In the recipe, for the full recipe, you'll do about 2 cups, but for today we're doing half, so we're going to do about a cup. And adding this water is going to allow the rice and the lentils to cook together. And so it'll cook fully. So we cook the lentils halfway through. Adding this water is just going to allow everything to cook together and at the same time. So once you have everything together with the water and the lentils and the rice and the onions, you're going to bring this up to about medium-high heat, and you want to see it boil. Once it boils, we're going to bring it down to a simmer and let it do its thing for about 15 minutes.
Are we going to put a lid on it, leave the lid off?
Yes.
What's that?
So once it starts to boil, we'll bring it down to a simmer, put the lid on, and let it do its thing.
All right. And then how much time does that need?
About 15 minutes.
Okay. So not a very lengthy dish to
Not at
prepare,
all.
especially with the quick caramelizing method at the beginning.
Exactly.
So we'll put the lid on it and
Yeah,
let this cook, and then let's think about if you were making this at home, let's think about how to make the cooking process as short as possible. Like I always talk about, like, whatever takes the longest, start with that first. So all the steps, let's think about like what we can do at the same time.
Yeah.
Because we can think about active cooking and passive cooking instead of doing one step and waiting to do the next step. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, so definitely. So before we started today, I already had my lentils cooked. So what we could do is, if you're doing this at home, make sure you cook your lentils and your onions at the same time, so you're not having to wait for the lentils to cook while you're doing that.
Yeah.
And then having your rice be soaked at the very beginning. So your rice, your onions, and your lentils are kind of all going at the same time.
Yep.
And together they only take about 15 to 20 minutes.
Each of those components take the same amount of time. So do it at the same time.
And so really 15, 20 minutes and you have a beautiful meal.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. I love that. That's like a really key takeaway there. Okay, so tell us about this dish in front of us.
Yes. So this is probably the star of the show, in my opinion. So here we have some crispy onions. You'll see on the recipe card that what we want to do is add some texture and some flavor to the dish. And this really does that. So what we did is we sliced up some onions really, really thin. We put them on a pan and we added some olive oil. You can add any oil that you choose. That was just our choice. But what kind of oils do you like to use at home?
I would choose olive oil, and then I also like to use avocado oil when I have it on hand. Both of those are really great in terms of their fat profile. So like all fats are going to give you the same amount of calories no matter what type it is, but they're all made up of different types of healthier and less healthy fat components. So your olive oil and your avocado oil, they're going to give you most of those unsaturated, polyunsaturated fats versus the more saturated fats. What's a trick to know just by looking at an oil if it's got like more saturated or unsaturated fats?
Yeah, so any type of fat that's liquid at room temperature is going to be that unsaturated fat, that good fat that's going to help with all of the good things inside of our body. Whereas the fats at room temperature that are solid are going to be those saturated fats that are not going to be as good for us. So I think of things like lard or butter, which they're great in dishes and we can totally have them, but it's great just to know the difference.
Totally. So like not choosing a solid fat to cook with all the time is a good example of just balancing out the solid and the liquid fats.
Yeah.
Because like we all like butter on toast.
Right?
I'm generalizing here, but you know, like there is a time and a place where you can't substitute out the butter, and then don't.
Exactly. And then don't. And that is completely okay. Especially whatever you have in your house. If butter is all you have in your house, feel free to use it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But yeah, so we are going to saute. I sauteed the onions in olive oil. But the trick is with making them nice and crispy is we want the pan and the oil to be really, really hot.
Yeah.
So we do a 1 onion test strip trial, I guess you should say. Yeah. And we would put 1 onion in the pan. Once you see that onion sizzle and pop and kind of bubbles go around the onion, that's when you know that the pan is ready. I added those to the pan and you just let them go. You want to make sure they're at an even layer on the pan. You don't have anything stacked because you want to make sure that every onion gets all the love that it needs in the pan.
Yeah, and so it doesn't like steam itself. If it's too crowded, they won't get crispy, and you just want them to be crispy.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes the dish so much better.
And it's a great like counter texture to the rice and lentils mix. It's the rice lentils, it's the texture that you imagine. It's a texture of cooked rice. So having those onions really like balances it all out.
Definitely. Well, I think this is almost done, but we do have a batch that is already ready for you guys. You don't have to sit and wait. So I'm going to switch these out. Awesome. So I'm going to take this off. And this is what the final dish will look like. And you'll see this caramelized color, nice and brown. You'll see the little bits of onions in there. Looks and smells amazing. Can you smell it?
So good. It's so good. Like, I wish you could smell it.
It's awesome. So this recipe in full makes about 7 cups. So we're going to portion out one of those servings here. But you can double the recipe. You can half the recipe. If you're only wanting to make a little bit, you can cut it down or increase it to your heart's content. So I'm going to go ahead and put about a cup in here. I'm going to use this spoon just to kind of help me out. I don't want to skimp out on my servings. Just like that.
Yeah, man.
Looks amazing. So we're going to put this in our bowl. Looks awesome. Put our spoon on the side, and then we're going to top it with those crispy onions. You guys hear that crunch as I pick them up? Just like that.
Yeah. You may want to like make more crispy onions than the recipe calls for. I just want to like put that plug in there because you might be a little disappointed because you might want a lot on each of your servings. But so here's the final dish. So you've got those crispy, yummy onions on top.
And I'm going to let you be my taste tester.
Okay, you got it. I will always accept that. I will always be the taste tester.
She has given me a scale of 0 to 10. What are we? She's doing a happy food dance. Awesome. And you can also pair this with different components to elevate the dish. So I like to use a Greek yogurt sauce, also inspired by Greek tradition, called tzatziki sauce. It's like a cucumber Greek yogurt sauce. You can add it on the side. You can also pair it with just Greek yogurt alone. It's a great combination. Adds a little bit of richness to the dish. It makes it kind of come together. You could also do a cucumber and tomato salad paired with this dish to kind of give it a little bit more. And then you could also add meat to this dish if you wanted to. What kind of meat would you
I'm glad you brought that up. Because we hear that all the time. We're like, where's the meat? Where's the meat in here? I think a ground meat would be perfect for this dish because lentils, they're so small that they have like sort of a ground meat texture when they're cooked. So incorporating a little bit of ground meat into this dish would mix in really well with the textures. And then also it can help you make your meat last longer for more dishes. So, I mean, add a lot of meat if you want to. You're gonna get different nutrition from an animal meat versus a plant meat like the lentils. So you're still gonna get good protein from any ground meat that you choose, like a lean ground beef or turkey. You could do chicken if you wanted to. Yeah. Just to drain off any of that extra fat, because you don't need the flavor that you think you need from the fat of the ground meat because the caramelized onions are doing the job.
Exactly. They really are. They are the star of the show.
They are the star of the show. Okay.
Awesome.
Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up here today?
I don't think so. I think this is a great dish to make at home. It's very quick. Like I said, you can put a lot of these steps together to make it a lot quicker. And I hope you guys try it at home. I encourage you guys to take these ingredients, whip it up, and let me know what you think.
Absolutely. I just realized I didn't put my little banner in the corner. So here you go.
Awesome.
We appreciate you watching this video, and we hope you will try a dish that may be out of your familiar dishes. And also, we just want to celebrate all of the wonderful ways that Arab Americans have contributed to our collective culture, and what better way to do that than with food.
Yeah. Always fun to eat, right?
Always fun to eat. What is it that your uncle that said something about eating around the table? What did he say? I'll never forget this.
Yes, my uncle, my family's 100% Greek, and he had mentioned to me, how do I know what's going on in your life if we don't eat?
There you go.
and that's how it works.
And that really aligns with like the very familial and like collective culture within Arab communities. So yeah. I thought that just aligned so well.
Food is connection. Food is love. It brings us together, and we thank the American Arab culture here for giving us a little bit of that today.
Absolutely. All right. Okay, friends. So you can find the Okay, perfect. That landed perfect. You can find the recipe here in this link on the screen. I'll also drop it in the chat box for you. And so, send us a note. If you got any questions or comments, let us know on Facebook or YouTube. And we'll see you in a couple weeks for another episode of Pantry to Plate it's still May. It's still April. It will still be in April. Goodness.